Social engineering and its examples. This lesson will give us in-depth knowledge of what exactly is social engineering, how the attacks are being orchestrated, and what are common examples. What is social engineering? Social engineering is an act of using an individual to compromise an information system. It could also be unwittingly giving access to sensitive resources. It exploits human psychology that aims to manipulate the victim into divulging confidential information in the interest of cybercriminals. Social engineering is vastly more successful when compared to other cyber threats because technical, precautionary measures are ineffective on this type of vulnerability. Cybercriminals use social engineering techniques because exploiting the victim's natural instinct to trust is easier than discovering ways of hacking the system. Clearly, social engineering attacks are weakening the cybersecurity chain. Companies have tried enhancing their information security methods such as firewalls, intrusion detection systems, IDS, intrusion prevention systems, IPS, antivirus software, and security information and event management, SIEM. Still, these are not enough when corporate employees get manipulated by social engineers. Take this scenario for instance. A social engineer calls you and pretends to be personnel from the IT department. The social engineer will then trick you into providing your credentials or personal information for a fake system update. The types of information these social engineers steal can vary. It usually depends on what their next goal is. Say, for example, their goal is to have access to the victim's computer. These social engineers will lure you into installing malicious software onto your corporate devices. This malicious software will then provide the social engineers access to control your computers. Social engineering has become an emerging cybersecurity threat, as multinational companies and news agencies have fallen victims to its sophisticated attacks. Notable examples include when Google's internal system was compromised in 2009. The RSA security token system was broken in 2011, and Facebook users and New York Times subscribers were compromised in 2013. Although there are different social engineering attacks, they all have the same pattern. This pattern involves 4 general steps. The first step is information gathering. The social engineer will research and collect background information about the intended victim. Useful information that may be gathered could be a name, birth date, phone numbers, and social activities. This information will then be used to build a relationship with the victim. The second step is establishing a relationship with the target. Building a rapport with the target makes it easier to obtain more information. The social engineer will take advantage of the psychological aspect of trust. The goal is to make the victim feel the engineer can be trusted. The third step is exploiting the available information. The social engineer will then manipulate the target to divulge private information, such as username and password, or they will trick them into performing any action that will benefit the attacker. The fourth and the last step is the execution of the attack. The social engineer will then use the obtained information to access the system and finish his or her plan. There are 3 common examples of social engineering attacks. The first one is the physical approach. The social engineer performs physical action in acquiring personal information about the target. For instance, they will take to dumpster diving or searching for useful information through garbage dumps. Dumpster diving is an often used method of social engineering. A lot of valuable corporate data such as employees' names, phone numbers, and/or organization chart, as well as user credentials and passwords written in notes, can be found in the company's trash. The second example is the social approach. Social approach is the most crucial aspect of successful social engineering. To manipulate their victim, the social engineer will rely on psychological approaches, such as persuasion. Persuasion methods include ingratiation, conformity, diffusion of responsibility, impersonation, and friendliness. The main objective of this approach is to first have a comfortable relationship with the target. The social engineer may befriend the target, or act as his or her senior to build the trust they need to develop with the victim. Once the relationship has been established, the social engineer will then convince the victim to disclose sensitive information, or perform malicious attacks that might compromise the employee and/or your company's information system. The third example is reverse social engineering. This can be tagged as a superior or an advanced form of social engineering. It is the opposite of the social approach. Instead of approaching the victim, the goal is to let the victim contact the social engineer. This attack involves convincing the target they need the social engineer's services. There are 3 steps in a successful reverse social engineering attack, though. These are sabotaging, advertising, and assisting. Heightened emotions give the social engineer an advantage in any circumstances. Thus, the first step is sabotaging. The social engineer damages the employee's computer. The employee, afraid of losing files, will then search for a person to help fix the damaged machine. The second step is advertising. The social engineer advertises that the problem can be resolved by contacting a particular technical support number. The third step is assisting. Since the employee is in an enhanced emotional state, the employee will ask for the social engineer's help in resolving the issue. By this time, the social engineer has already gained the trust of the victim. Once the victim is convinced of the legitimacy of the social engineer's services, they will unknowingly provide sensitive information, such as username and password. In the next lesson, let us proceed with understanding about how these social engineering attacks can be avoided. To avoid social engineering. We now know what social engineering is and have read about common examples. This lesson will guide us on how we can avoid social engineering. Social engineering occurrences can be detected and prevented, but once the victim is engaged, the attack cannot be stopped. You play an essential role in mitigating these social engineering strikes. Any negligent and untrained corporate employee can put their data and their company's information system at risk. Social engineers will continue to take advantage of these attacks, so long as you are not aware of how to detect and counter these cybersecurity threats. Thus, you should be committed to consistently improving your cybersecurity awareness training. Suggested mitigation techniques for social engineering attacks are: attending SIA cybersecurity awareness training, whether you are a new hire or a tenured employee. Changing passwords regularly and enforcing multi-factor authentication, MFA, is crucial. Avoiding the posting of personally identifiable information in any social media platforms. Do not publicly disclose organizations' sensitive and private information. Reporting any unsolicited phone calls and email from unknown sources to the correct department. Being vigilant with any suspicious person around the workplace. Corporate employees are the primary target of cyber attacks due to being the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. However, you are also the company's first line of security. Any employee who is knowledgeable about cybersecurity is an addition to the company's defense against social engineering bouts. You should be held responsible for posting any personal and company information on any of your social media platforms. Social engineers can use anything that is posted on social media. Posting less, or not at all, lessens the chances of being targeted by cybercriminals. You should also be alert when engaged in phone calls. Scams through phones are a common tactic by social engineers. They will pretend they are from a legitimate institution and will ask for you or your colleagues' personal information. You should keep in mind you should not give out any personally identifiable information, like usernames and passwords, over the phone to any unauthorized person. In reality, social engineers are just fishing for information, and most of the time, do not know this information at all. If this information is needed for verification purposes, It will be done via email, and they will ask for your consent first. All the more, it is best to stay vigilant in knowing and reporting possible social engineering threats so as not to compromise personal and company information. Another cybersecurity attack we should be vigilant to is phishing. This cybersecurity threat will be discussed in detail in our next section.